Okay, we would like to go ahead and get started. Before we do, DJ has asked if she could start us off with a prayer.
Hi neighbors, how are you all today? I am wonderful, and if I didn't give you a hug yet, I would love to do that before you leave. And if we could stand, if you don't mind standing. Okay. We're going to pray in Jesus' name, Lord. We just welcome you right into our midst, Lord Jesus. We ask that you just touch every home that's represented here today. We ask that you would touch the hearts and the minds of the developers, Lord Jesus. Lord, help them to see the hearts of the neighbors who have spent more money on their homes than they'll ever spend for the rest of their lives, Lord Jesus. And Lord, that they would be sensitive to what we have to say. And Lord, may we also, as homeowners, Lord, be sensitive to the developers, Lord. And may we come together in such gentleness and loving kindness one toward another, Lord Jesus, considering one another as we would ourselves, Lord Jesus. And we just thank you for being in our midst right now, Lord. Bless this month, bless Thanksgiving, Lord, that we would be thankful for one another, and may loving kindness rest, rule, and abide in this meeting. And we thank you for everyone present tonight and give them safe travels home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much.
Okay, before we get started, I thought it was important. We have 5 different HOAs represented in this situation. So we wanted to have our HOA leadership come up and introduce themselves real quick so that you know who you can speak to if you have questions within your HOA. So if y'all don't mind coming up, if you are in leadership in your HOA, so that we can do that real fast. If you don't want to talk, introduce yourself. That's all I ask.
I am Ray Martin. I'm with the Fairways of Scenic Hills, which I'm not saying not everybody up here has skin in the game, but us in Northcliffe probably have the most skin in this game at this point. But we want to do what's best for the community.
I'm Bill Edmonds, president of Northcliffe HOA, and I have no answers for your questions.
John Thompson, I'm the treasurer of Northcliffe HOA. I'm Ty Hahn. I represent Fairway Ridge HOA.
I'm Judy Graffenried, and I represent Fairhaven. I'm the president there, and Bill does have all the answers.
I'm Tori Bruce, and I'm a member of the Fairway Ridge HOA.
My name is Greg Maddox, and I'm president of the Scenic Hills Community HOA.
I'm Jan Walden, president of the HOA in Northcliffe, and I give Bill all the answers.
Okay, thank you guys very much. So my name is Phil Jackson. If you don't know me, I am not on any HOA leadership. My wife is Heather Jackson. We've just been heavily involved in this over the past many years. And so we try to help represent all of our community, help the HOAs with these meetings. My being up here speaking to you does not mean I am representing the developer. I am here asked by the HOAs, by all HOAs, just to say something real short. During this presentation, there may be things that we like, there may be things that we don't like. What we ask is that everybody is respectful during the presentation. Allow him to complete the presentation. Write down your questions. If you don't have anything to write on, if you have your phone, use your notes app. Commit it to memory if you need to, but give him a chance to complete the presentation, and then we'll come with the questions and the comments and all the things that we need to get through. But if we interrupt as he goes, it's just going to extend this night for everybody. And when it does come time for us to speak and ask questions and let our thoughts be known, we just ask that we show respect. We can be passionate and respectful at the same time. So we ask that is held tonight so that we show the character behind all of our Northcliffe communities. So if we can do that, we would appreciate it.
Can y'all hear me okay in the back? Is this loud?
enough for everybody? No? Okay. I'll speak up because some folks in the back are having a little trouble hearing me. And I don't know why, but I was born a big guy with a soft voice. So if you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll try to talk up. Sometimes my mic drops and, voice goes off. It's my pleasure to be here with y'all tonight. I'm honored to be before you. My name is David Earl, and I'm an attorney, but don't hold that against me, for the developer. And the developer is asking me to come tonight to make a presentation. And why? Why is that? Because our firm has a very great amount of background and experience in land development projects, but also municipal law, municipal governance, neighborhood issues, traffic issues, water, environmental issues. I've been a lawyer in this area, born and raised here in the San Antonio area, and I've been doing this for over 34 years. And we've helped to deliver and develop really nice communities throughout Texas and outside of Texas. And our firm, our goal is to help bring good things to neighborhoods and to build new communities and build up existing communities and develop them. And that's why they hired us. I know there's a lot of water that's going under the bridge with regard to this development, and I can't speak to all that. I wasn't involved in it. We were hired recently by the investors that have come into this project, the UART group. They're a very unique group of people with a very beautiful philosophy about life and how to treat people. And they've come into this fairly recently, and they hired us to work through the issues and to listen to the concerns and to try to modify things to meet those concerns so that there can be new development in the area, but in a way that's meaningful but respectful to the people who live there now, which is all of you. And hopefully even address some concerns that exist and existed long before this was ever thought of as a project. And we'll get into all those things. A little history since I've been involved. I have been meeting with the neighborhood association leaders in a series of meetings, mainly initially to listen and learn what the issues were, and then go back to my client group and talk about those issues and say, what can we do differently to try to make a difference? That process has continued, and then on Monday night, I met with about 17 people who are the leadership of the HOAs that represent you all. And I laid out a program or a project, which I'm going to go through today. But before I do, I'll tell you this. In that meeting, there were additional things raised and fine points made on issues. And my client has listened to that. And I've talked to my client about that and shared those things. And so the presentation I'm making to you tonight will not be the same project. There's similarities, certainly, but it will not be the same project going forward. Why? There have been concerns about density, the number of homes per acre. So we're looking at trying to reduce the density to respond to your concerns that you have about the project. That's one thing. There's a certain level at which the project does not work economically. And you have to bring in, quite frankly, a very low product to make it work financially. And that doesn't make sense to the investor I represent and the developer I represent. It doesn't make sense, I'm sure, to y'all or to the situation. So that's it's a non-starter. Because you want to do an amenity-rich development. A lot of amenities, a lot of nice things, higher level homes. But to do that, every lot has to be built in a certain way. There's a certain amount of cost associated with that lot. That increases the cost of everything. It's economics. So that's one issue. Density is important to you all because you want it lower. To the developer because they want to make sure that the project can be profitable. But the balance has to be struck. So density, we'll talk about that tonight. And again, what you see tonight in the presentation is not the density that they're going to move forward with, based on the conversations we've had as recent as Monday. The second big thing is traffic. I understand traffic. I was stuck in it. That's why I was pretty late getting here. My intention was to get here at 6. I got here right about 6:30, thanks to 1604. Traffic is a nightmare. It's a nightmare on the way from Helotes to here. It's a nightmare here, going to your home and back. And it seems like no matter what is done, development keeps happening, and the government, who we all trust and pay taxes to take care of things like traffic and transportation and utilities, just doesn't seem to get it right and always catching up to things. And as a result, the traffic is horrendous. It's horrendous now for your developments that you live in, your neighborhoods. Whether this project happens or not, you face some serious traffic issues. That's become very clear to us in this process. Our goal and my client's desire is to do something meaningful to address the problems you experience now and not to add to those problems, but to find a way to provide better traffic solutions that actually mitigate the problem you have now and give the allowance for additional development so it doesn't compound that problem you have now. We'll get into that. One of the other issues is security. You bring new people into a community that's established, what's going to happen? What kind of people are they? Good people or the bad people? What's being done to maintain a separation between those who are here now and those who are coming? It's not that people are unfriendly. People know their neighbors. They like where they live or they wouldn't live there. And they don't really want it to change, unless it can change drastically for the better. And oftentimes new development does not do that. So security is an issue. So we'll talk a little bit about the security and what that means, what it looks like, and how measures can be taken to make sure there's security. Not because the people that are moving in here are bad people, but because there's a desire among some of the groups that are here tonight, represented here tonight, to maintain not a distance from new people that may be coming in, but to know that they're secure. And the biggest reason for that is not because they're not nice people or they don't want to get along with others. It's because they built their homes, some of them 35 years ago, around a golf course. And they thought it was going to be a golf course. And therefore, they don't have fences in their backyards. It backs up to a golf course, or what was a golf course. That's really why they're worried about security, because you put park trails in and things like that. Those are all beautiful things. But if there's no way to buffer those trails from your back door, that's a security threat, security issue. And so we're talking about what we can do to enhance that security, make sure that's not a concern if this development goes forward. One of the other things is what type of homes are built. Obviously, we'll talk about that. How they're managed, who's going to keep up with everything. Are there commitments being made? If so, what are they and how they're being made? And how can you, as residents of the community, trust that those commitments will be honored and not just be talk, and then when things get going, everything changes, and you're sold a bill of goods. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And the other thing we'll talk about is how all these things can be addressed in a way that makes sense and that benefit you all, as well as the property owners of the property that's looking at being developed in a common way, in a collective way, where we can actually work together as a group, all of you, and those involved in this project, and the people who will step into the project if it's built, to work together to make the situation in your neighborhoods, in your community, that they'll be part of, better for everybody. So with those caveats and with that background, I'm going to get into the presentation and go through it. I'm going to go through it in a pretty good clip, so I respect your time. But as he said, we're going to have plenty of time for questions, and I would love to stay here as long as necessary to answer every one of them and discuss things. But I think because of the way this meeting's going to go and the direction it's taking or will take, there's going to be more discussion. We're going to ask that you get more involved. We're going to ask that the HOAs appoint representatives to serve on a committee with us to go to the city and work some things out that need to be worked out to make all this come together for everybody, and also to decide how it's going to be paid for in a way that doesn't cost you anything. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So, with that in mind, with your permission, I'll begin the slideshow. The Northcliffe property. You hear this one okay? Might be a little better, it sounds like. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking about it. The Northcliffe development. You all know where it's at. By way of background, not that you don't know this, because you may not. The area in green, the old golf course, is what we're looking at doing the project of. Obviously, you've seen this. You understand that it's been going a long time. What are the densities in the existing subdivision? What are they? To the right, there are 4 to 5 units to the acre. To the south, up at the top, there are about 4 units to the acre. Some areas are a little tighter than that. Getting over on the other side of the country club, they're to the acre. Some are larger by the golf course, meaning they're probably 3.5, some are 4. Coming around this way, the newer development is dense. 5, some of it even 6 acres used to the acre. That's what's existing now. And the traffic generated from those developments is flowing down in a conflict situation because everything around it has been built out without proper planning and without enough infrastructure for traffic. And what that means is people make decisions that affect your life and don't really think about what's going to happen. TxDOT, for example, they expand 35 in a massive way. They take what was a 2-way access road where you could go either way on it and change it to 1 lane, I mean a 1-way access road. So now everybody's forced to go north to go south out of your subdivision because you really don't have a way to get there other than that unless you go to 1103. And to get to 1103, you have very limited options on how to get there. And everybody to the south is going to 1103 to get to 35. And so it backs up and backs up. It takes forever to get in and out. And if you're lucky enough to get there in good order, you got to turn and come down to Schwab Road. And you're competing with traffic exiting off 35 and coming out of Country Club and coming out of other places and then coming out of this new development, Homestead, all pouring in, and they're still building there. It's going to get much worse. All pouring onto 35, coming down to Schwab Road, which isn't even a signalized interchange. And there's no turnaround built. And so what happens? You wait there. You wait there. And you wait as one car goes at a time through the stop signs. And you wait, and you wait. All because people have not done their job, proper planning, and proper utilization of the traffic system. So that's what happens. That's what we're facing together, the developer as well as yourself. That's what we have to overcome to make it better. So, I'm trying to jump too far ahead here. So right now there's zoning applications, and that's why we're all here. Because this property, in order to be developed in a way that's different, needs to be rezoned. Eventually it will be. The city feels the pressure to grow, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the state legislature has taken the city's power to grow away. A few sessions ago, they ended the city's ability to involuntarily annex, which is exactly how you got in the city. Not because you wanted to be in the city, but because they had the power to come and take you in the city. Why? Because there was tax base there, and they wanted that tax base to get more money. Very simple. Now that's gone away because cities abused it. And I've represented 9 cities as city attorney. I'm speaking with authority on this. They abused it. As a result, the city can't come and take more property, so it's got to do infill development. It's got to find a way to develop whatever properties in the city limits to continue to grow its tax base as inflation goes up and they need more money to spend. Because cities always want more money to spend. That's the government. So the city has a lot of pressure on it to develop this property or see it be developed. They want it developed. You don't. And somewhere between the two of those is a solution that can work for everybody. Not because we've got to please the city, but because eventually this land will be developed. If not by my client, by someone. So we have the zoning application. They're asking for R5, and I've represented a lot of cities. I do stuff with cities all the time. Our firm, a family-owned law firm, and we understand municipal law very well. The city of Schertz has a very rudimentary zoning code. It has R1, R2, R3, R5. It's very block zoning. There's nothing refined about it. And so when you come to a city like Schertz, you've got to pick a zoning, and there's no, in their minds in the past at least, there's been no way to refine that or restrict it to make it serve the people that are around it in a very definite way with restrictions or conditions. That's what the city's position has been. However, in their own city code, it allows for conditional zoning. They just have not used it in the past. So we have talked with their city attorney, we've talked with the city and explained, you have the ability to restrict these projects and limit them as to things like density. Put conditions on what can and cannot be done, which has become part of the law applicable to that tract that anyone that develops it has to abide by. That's one protection for surrounding landowners. Zoning is supposed to protect surrounding landowners, that's what it's for, and make sure things are compatible. So, our client on what's blue here is seeking R5. R5, one of the problems or concerns that comes from that is R5 ordinarily allows a higher density. Our clients don't want to do that high density. And in discussions with the neighborhood folks, our clients have agreed to voluntarily reduce their density, restrict it by conditional zoning, what the city is going along with doing now, but then also restrict it by deed restrictions and covenants that are recorded and made perpetual on the land in perpetuity, restricting the ability to do anything but that density. So when you look at the R5 application, understand that what we're really asking for is not the 12 units per acre that R5 can allow, but we're asking for less than that. In this presentation, at the time it was done last Monday, before we went back and talked about it more, they were asking for about 473 units, or 7 units to the acre, 5.9 units to the acre. After discussing it with the neighborhood and talking to the clients and doing some calculations, they were willing to come down from that. How much, we're not sure yet. But we're not going to move forward till we know. Originally, this application was set to move forward this year. My advice, my clients have listened to it, is to stop going so fast, start listening, and taking action to make things better. So the application will not go forward in December. It's going to take some time to work through these issues. But our client is committed to working through the issues with you. If you're going to seek R5, there's a reason for that. It's because what they're doing is trying to do some housing that is Class A housing, but is broken up in a way that is residential, single-family residential. We'll get more to that in a moment. But that also allows for common management, common responsibilities, because people are changing. And younger people don't want to mow their own grass. Younger people don't want to do various things. They want a yard, but they don't want to care for themselves. And frankly, a lot of them don't. And so it requires there to be a common ownership, like an HOA, but a corporate common ownership that they're all responsible to and part of, to make sure those things are done, and the services are common services, to mow the grass, do the landscaping, and do everything else that's needed around the house rather than in the house. That's why they're going for R5 instead of, some type of other zoning. So this blue area they're proposing is R5. The R5 will continue, but the type of density and uses will change based on our common understanding and discussion. The existing improvements out here need help. They're not in good shape. Some neighborhoods are able to take care of their streets better. Others suffer from disrepair. You all use Country Club, and it is not in good shape. In fact, right now there's barricades up because part of it's fallen apart, okay? It needs to be repaired. How much of your tax money, since you've been in, has been paying money to the city, do you think has gone into repairing Country Club or any other street in your development, in your neighborhoods? Zero. You don't see trucks from the city out there, contractors paving or doing anything. They just don't do it. They're spending their money elsewhere. Where, I'm not sure, but they're spending it elsewhere. But you're paying it in your community. We want to put a stop to that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The one thing we're going to do, what I talk about here is a commitment that this project, this new development, will fund everything I'm going to talk about tonight. Okay? It's not going to come out of anyone else's pocket, but that new development. Okay? So redoing Country Club, getting it repaired, getting it upgraded. We didn't want this, but the city's answer to the traffic problem that they conditioned our approval on and still are trying to condition our approval on. I'm talking about the staff. I'm not talking about the new council members or the new mayor, because I have not talked to the new mayor about this project. I intend to. But I'm talking about the staff. They literally have conditioned zoning approval and encouraged zoning approval on one big thing that really I found nobody wants. And that's a new connector right along the back of the homes that are there now, under the power lines, from Country Club all the way out to 1103. Past Eagle Valley, all the way out to 1103. That's the city's answer. Put more traffic on 1103. It doesn't work. Not only does it not work, but it creates a new road going right behind these neighborhoods. We have heard the concerns about that. It didn't really make sense to us either, so our answer to that's gonna be no. But we want your voices heard in that too, because you're the ones that are affected. If we don't do this project, guess what? The next development that comes to the city, staff's gonna say the same thing. Build that, and you can come. You need to stop that if you don't want it, and you don't want it, okay? We're in favor of stopping that with you. It doesn't make sense. So that's a no. We think it's a no, you think it's a no, we need to let the city know that it's a no. We're looking at putting new collector road down here though, because there is new commercial coming in this area, and that will allow that to flow into 35 access without going back up these neighborhoods. I'm sorry, thank you for reminding me. I get to talking, my hands start going around, it's kind of crazy up here. Okay, so again, this flips the diagram, so now 35 is on the top, okay? But you can see the layout of lots better here. You can see what they wanted to do was take this right through Country Club, down through, right by Eagle Valley, over to FM 1103. Say it would be actually they want it to be a two-way. We said a one-way, only right out to FM 1103, but we think it shouldn't happen at all, because it's just a bad idea. And again, this is an update. The presentation I gave last time, that was still on there because the city was demanding that, but we're not going to go with that. And luckily, you had some success in an election recently in November, which I think gives you more strength to get staff. A lot of times the city staff start taking control, they start making all the decisions. When you have stronger elected officials, that doesn't happen. Because elected officials are accountable to you. You elect them. You can not elect them. The staff are bureaucrats, and I'm not against bureaucrats, but they work there, and they don't have to go to the ballot boxes. So, one of the things we're looking at on this part of it, on the right side of Country Club and behind on the left and the back, is adding additional walking trails. This is where the security concerns come in. Because a lot of the folks who would abut this walking trail, as you can see in these photos, they don't have fences. And so one thing we were asked for is to make sure there's a privacy fence or a fence of some sort in between the trail and the homes that are there. And make sure it's on the 35 side of that right-of-way, the electric right-of-way. Well, that's an easy thing to do. It's a smart thing to do. Again, not because people want to not communicate with others, but because they want secure homes. And so we're adding that to that plan. That's another modification based on the concerns we heard. But we'll be adding 1.8 miles of walking trails on this side, and then we'll include workout stations and other things, so people can enjoy it. From your communities, the new community can enjoy it and use those facilities. We're also encouraging continuation of the golf cart tracks. Even though this is no longer a golf course, the golf cart is a very efficient way of traveling around, seeing neighbors, getting to things. So we're actually not only encouraging it, but we're going to add additional golf cart tracks that will connect the commercial, the medical, the retail, entertainment to the neighborhood so that you can go back and forth without having to get in your car and go around and get in traffic. We think that's a good idea, as well as walking trails. So, might be a shorter presentation than I thought. One of the issues with the walking trails also is the elevations. Like, what do you see when you look out the back of your house if you do happen to live next to the green space or the trails? Put this diagram in to help explain what we're looking at doing. And what we're talking about, these things again will all be in deed restrictions, not just as covenants or conditions in the zoning code that's passed or the ordinance that's passed, but also conditions and restricted covenants enforceable by the neighborhood associations. This gives you an idea of the buffering. Some people, and this applies to all buildings, whether it's a home, multifamily, senior living, whatever it is. The minimum buffers are going to be the following. If you look at the existing home, and the reason there's two pictures is some of this area has an elevation change from the existing area to the golf course, and others are basically in grade. So we go starting with the one with the elevation change on top, where there's a drop in elevation, the existing home, you have your ground level, there'd be an 8-foot fence. There would be a retaining wall with a drop if it's necessary, depending on the elevation. With a 5-foot buffer between the fence and the retaining wall, and then a 20-foot buffer before the backyard, and then a 20-foot backyard setback. So a total of 40 feet plus 5 feet, plus whatever the backyard of the existing home is, between that structure and the other structure. A meaningful buffer, that's what's being proposed. Same thing below, but it shows us along the ground without the elevation change. 40 feet, 20-foot buffer in the backyard setback on the right side of the fence. What kind of product is being built? Have y'all ever seen something that's called the birdsong concept or birdsong housing? There's something on Heaton Road over by, kind of by 1604 and, Housman Road over by 1604 and Housman. It's a very nice looking product. It's single family, spaced out between the buildings. Very nicely done, very attractive, very well maintained, but they are rentals. They're not privately owned. Originally, they were planning to do a lot of that R5, all of it pretty much, as this type of product. After our meeting on Monday, there's a desire to have these homes, at least some of them, be owned. So if you have multifamily, basically, is what they're calling it, even though it's not single family, but it's still rental. It's a single family built to rent. If you have that, how can you then achieve home ownership, or how can you do both? And the answer is, you plat it differently. So you're platting it as a large lot, but you also have individual rights associated with each of the homes, so that the areas can be commonly maintained and kept up and managed, but the homes are privately or can be privately. And so although originally they were looking at the full density communities and the single family product, since our conversation Monday, they're willing to modify that and change it. We don't know to what extent yet, but we'll discuss that with a group of your representatives to come up with a solution. I think that's the wisest way to do it. So that'll be changing, but the idea will be that individuals can own the product, but they'll be commonly managed. So both are achieved. What the market's desiring is achieved in common management, common maintenance, and really that protects you too, having a bunch of rental homes. Because if someone just buys a house as an investor or wants to live there, there's a big demand for rental product right now because people cannot qualify for a home right now. It's too upside down. The mortgages are too high, qualifications too difficult, credit ratings have taken a beat, especially among young people with student loans. And there's no place they can go to buy. That American dream is fading away very quickly for young people. This gives them the answer. And actually, because of the concerns of your group, the answer now also leads to the ability not just to rent to live somewhere, but also to go into home ownership, move into home ownership by renting, because they'll be able to buy the unit. That's a change, a very major change in the process of the program. But they're well maintained, they front onto open space. Some of them have 2-car garages, some 1-car tandem garages. And we're looking at the design to see what we can do to increase the footprint of the house, expand square footage. Right now, they're looking at between about 900 square feet and 1,600 square feet. That could change. Some of them are looking at doing, a single-family home. Technically, it's still a single-family product, but there are 2 dwellings in it, so we could call it a duplex. But those are actually about 2,800 to 3,000 square feet. Some even higher than that. So there's a 3-bedroom, 2.5, 3-bath on each side. A significant, nice home, but they're connected. Again, because it's more economical, and they share they have their own yards, but it's a connected space. Again, they can be privately owned under this new concept that we're working on since last Monday. Two-story maximum. Why isn't it switching? But there we go.
So looking on this part of the development, coming closer to 35 around Pebble Beach, that would be another 1.1 miles of walking trails. Same precautions, same buffers would apply here. And it would extend on the other side of Columbia and circle around the lake. That area on the corner over there by Columbia is where we're looking at age-restricted senior living product, which would be a multifamily, age-restricted senior living. What type of product is it? That's the question we got. It's a product where people can have independent senior living and then also be able to age in place there and move to higher levels of care. So that's the way it's set up, and you're familiar with those concepts. That's what we're looking at doing there. And that ties in with what we're looking at doing on the frontage, which is medical extrinsic development of doctor's office, medical, office building, medical, along the frontage there. This is a very busy slide, but it shows a lot of things, so I'm going to take a moment to go through it. The amenity package. My clients felt, based on other projects they've done, they've done thousands and thousands of units throughout the United States, that it would be very, very important to the community to have additional amenities. What we have found is, apparently, at least for folks we've talked to so far, the amenities aren't that important to your group. You feel as though you have enough amenities in your own developments. I totally respect that. We do need to make sure there's good amenities for the new people coming into the development, but there's a balance that can be had. And if that's the case, if you really don't want new soccer fields or chipping green and things like that, then those open spaces we were setting aside for that type of product can be used to spread out the density of the homes and make them less dense throughout the rest of the development. Lowering the density adjacent to the existing residential, that's something we're looking at doing on a per acre basis. So this slide doesn't reflect that change, but what we've heard, at least from the folks we spoke to, is that in this slide we have a common amenity center which has pools, grills, restrooms, party pavilions, lazy river, pickleball courts, chipping green, restrooms, and then a quarter-mile track with fitness stations for walking, jogging, and then youth soccer and pitch fields. Below that, this would be open to the entire Northcliffe community at no cost. The only exception would be there would be a small fee for using the pool, for membership to the pool, because pools, insurance, and other things, you want to be able to really watch who goes in and out of that pool. And so there'd be a small fee for membership in that very nice large pool, lazy river, etc. That was one amenity package. It's an expensive one, but a very nice one as it's planned, that we had proposed to put in. The second one further down would have the equipment, workout equipment, things like that, leasing office, totally separate from the other one, fitness center, restrooms, pool of its own, conference rooms, kitchenette, outdoor games, pavilions, and community garden. And the community garden would be a shared asset between the neighborhood that's here and the new one that's coming in here for gardening. The feedback we got that this is duplicative and unnecessary, and you'd rather have other things besides this, we're trying to balance that. And I'm having trouble with my client understanding why you don't want it. That's why they want to talk with a group of you about it. But assuming that you're truly not wanting some of these amenities, open space amenities, like as big of a walking trail or a youth soccer pitch, it lets us spread out the product to make the density lower. That's one way. And we also are just willing to eliminate some rooftops to lower the density. But this bottom fitness center and everything, this is what would be the area available to the new residents exclusively. And that's where the management would occur. They would go to take care of the business with the common management that runs everything, keeps all the facilities clean, grass mowed, landscapes properly maintained. That would be the management facility for that part of it as well. That's now shifting based on our discussion. That's zoning application number one. In a nutshell, that's what they're looking at doing in zoning application one. Zoning application number two is this area. It's about 26 acres. They're asking for R4 zoning, which normally allows 35 units to the acre. Okay? This is multifamily type concept zoning, R4. However, they're in the presentation Monday willing to restrict it from 35 units to the acre to 24 units to the acre across 21.22 acres, and deed restrict about 55% of what could be allowed under R4. What type of product is it? A good piece of this is that age-restricted senior living on the green piece up there, the back around the lake, okay? The blue part would be a more conventional multifamily development, Class A, but more conventional multifamily development. The transportation issues. They're looking at doing a new collector that goes from Columbia to 35 frontage. Improvements to existing Columbia Drive to upgrade it, repaint it, do things that are, make it nicer. And then a new access connection from Country Club over to the new collector road, going to 35, with another exit to 35. Why these exits to 35? So people have more of a chance to turn in. Right now, you've got to come off 35, and you got to hope you can make it over to Country Club with people coming off of 35 and coming the other way and trying to, interface with you. It's a bit of a nightmare. And then we understood, and one thing we put in the program too, is that people come in some parts of this roadway system, they're actually coming off of I-35, and I gotta admit to you, I'll just do it right now, that I'm from Texas, and I've done this before myself, the Texas exit, where you're on the main lane of a highway, and it's backed up real bad, and you're like, I gotta be somewhere, so you go across the grass and you hit the access road. Okay, very dangerous, I've done it, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't. Sure none of you have, but it happens, and you see it here, and it's dangerous. So what can we do to eliminate that? Our program would put money into a budget to put a cable and pole system along the edge of 35 main lanes so people can't do that crossing. That temptation is eliminated to the extent it's happening in this area. These extra drives here, here, here will allow more ingress and egress in without it all being concentrated in one location and demanding that you get over so quickly. When you're coming off of 35, you have more space to get over before you have to turn into the development, the existing development or the new development. In addition to green space, just with regard to this small zoning application, would include these ponds with green space around them, the walking trails, and then really doing something cool inside the Pebble Beach area, because that's a little bubble of green space that's in there from the old golf course days that something needs to be done with that's special. And what we're proposing to do is to do a 7.45, that's the size of an acre disc golf course. Still a golf concept, but a little different but fun. And then new parking over here and new restroom improvements to make it more usable and more user-friendly for everybody. New folks, people that are in your areas that live there now, as an amenity. So the amenities would include these things: the soccer field, unless that's eliminated, it's a request if you all can change to something else. Community garden, appropriate. Night sky lighting, not bright lighting, but nice lighting. Golf cart trails and additional golf cart amenities, including charging stations. The chipping green, the pool, lazy river, pickleball courts, and the golf, the frisbee golf, disc golf. The ponds, the fitness stations, playgrounds for the kids, and hike and bike trails throughout the area. So, zoning application 2 also includes some retail and commercial along this area in yellow. The part in red is not owned by our clients, owned by a church. Don't let me be familiar with that, but that's owned by a church. And that's one of the reasons why this part of the development, we're looking at doing a medical-centric type development, trying to focus on what our clients have a lot of relationship to. Our clients are in the financial markets. They do a lot of equity financing. They finance hospitals, doctors' offices, a lot of medical stuff just by chance. Very deep connection with the medical community, and because of that, they know they can make good use of this for medical office and medical service facilities. It's kind of a boutique commercial application, and that's what they're aiming at there. On this side. On the other side, it'd be more traditional here, commercial, which would include restaurants.
I think you have those backwards, according to your diagrams. This side is marked as medical.
I'm sorry. I think you're right. Again, this is not a perfect presentation. There needs to be changes to it, so bear with me. But I think you're right. This side is marked as medical. I do have it backwards. This is a thinner part. This will be the medical. The other side is the traditional. And this would be the medical service, which would also help service the senior living and be in proximity. It's kind of hard for me to look backwards, so I apologize, but you're right. That's my mistake. Thank you for pointing it out. So you have the multifamily, the senior living, and then the medical commercial. The other one, which I'll go back to, this is the traditional commercial, including restaurants, entertainment, retail. On both sides of 35, there's already some big box type retail and commercial. That's not what they're looking to do here. The biggest user here would be probably about 35 to 40,000 square foot would be considered an anchor tenant here. And everything else would be smaller around it, okay? One thing they're trying to look at here is the potential of a concept that's being done by a very large grocery vendor together with a fast food operator. It's like a grocery store concept. Kind of like not as busy as a Buc-ee's, but it's a Fisher's perhaps, where you have food, you know, fresh vegetables, produce, that kind of stuff, together with some meat selection. But you also have a fast food restaurant present in the establishment. It's a co-shared C-store. We're looking at trying to do something like that over on pad site number 1. And then have traditional commercial around it as well. So how do you do all this? And this is one thing our firm specializes in, is economic development. How can you make things happen like this and still make it affordable? How can you do things to solve problems outside of your development even, and still make it work? One of the best tools I've come across, and we've done a lot of them, is a tax increment reinvestment zone. What is that? And that's a concept that I don't think has been discussed with you all in the past collectively. We've talked to the upper folks with the associations, but with the community, we've not really talked about it. So I'll take a moment to explain what it is. It's an acronym, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, TIRZ. Under Chapter 311 of the Texas Tax Code, the law allows a city, or a county in some circumstances, but a city, to identify a tract of land and by ordinance after a public hearing, set it up as a reinvestment zone. On the day they do that, as of January 1st of that year, the taxes that are collected, the tax base of that area is looked at and said, okay, that's going to be the base of that undeveloped property. From now on, for as long as that zone exists, which could be anywhere from 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, up to 45 years under the law, 100% of the taxes that come off of that base value go to the city, the county, whoever collects taxes like they always have collected them. But anything new that gets put on there, the value of the increment, the new value for new buildings, new homes, things that are put on there, that tax goes into, a percentage of that tax goes into a TIRZ fund, which is controlled by a board, locally managed by people who live in the zone, who have ownership in the area, and that money is used to pay for improvements in that property, in that development area only, not elsewhere in the city. The county participates, not elsewhere in the county. If the hospital district participates, not elsewhere in the hospital district area. It all stays right where you are and improves your area, which is much different than what you've experienced in the past. The money you pay goes elsewhere. It does not cause any new taxes at all. It's just that the taxes imposed on the new area, the new development, instead of it all going to the city, the county, and going wherever they put it, it by law has to stay within the area. That means it can improve the area you're in and anything that benefits that area directly. That's the key to making this happen. That's the key, frankly, to solving the traffic problems you have now, is getting money available to build out about $15 million or more of improvements, to put in road improvements you need that aren't another way to 1103. And that's what we're going to look at here in a second. That's what a TIRZ is. We're asking the city that if we're going to solve these problems, they need to partner up and say they're willing to take the taxes they normally would receive, or at least a good portion of them. And instead of taking more money by more development, they've got to let it stay right here and fix problems that exist now and make things better to allow that new development not to make more problems in the future. That's what we're recommending. So the development pays for itself completely. And so far, they've been agreeing to do that. Now, I think part of it is because they wanted us to build that extension to 1103. But what we're gonna show you tonight is our recommendation back to them of what really needs to be done, which is more expensive, but actually does something to fix the problem. Well, I can fix the traffic, but I can't fix the security. Let's see. Whenever I come stand over here, it seems to work better. Look at that. All right. This just kind of shows an overall of everything all at one time. Again, the senior living, the multifamily, walking trail system, the disc golf, Northcliffe Village 2, walking trails, amenity center up there, Northcliffe Village 1, etc. You've already been through this, so I won't waste people's time on just kind of an overview. The overall site plan, what's shown there now is a position of what the product would have been had we gone forward the way it was if we met and showed it Monday, which is going to change. But that's kind of what the product would look like. What happens is they pull the product together in kind of a clustering to allow it to be built. This is more dense than what they'll be going with now, based on our discussions in the last 2 days. We need to engage with you all about what will be something that will work. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we hope it does. We hope we can get there with you. This is the other side that kind of shows that concept and the buffering and green space between the new product and the existing homes inside the golf course area and on the exterior part of the golf course area. It also shows the new road systems that we put in. Allow these folks to access directly to 35 and not have to go through the community that's existing. Kind of duplicative there. So we get down to the traffic solution. This is one of the biggest issues I think exists currently and in the future if we do this project. So we already talked about this, and it's a non-starter to do this extension to 1103. So what do we do to fix the problem? I was asked, what solutions do you have? Well, these are the solutions we're recommending. First of all, Country Club Lane, the developer came in and built your subdivision years ago, and they never extended it further than it did. So there's this gap that's reflected in the yellow, red, and blue between Country Club, which is here, and Green Valley. Green Valley is an exit for you both to the north and the south. One way, where does it take you? 1103. It doesn't help that much, but it's better than, if you're going the other way, it's certainly better than coming all the way around and getting the freight traffic at 35 and 1103. So one thing we can look at doing is do the Country Club Extension North Lane, which is the blue one, that takes it from the existing Country Club up to, and this is amazing, but when your subdivision was designed, they actually put in place the outlets from your subdivisions for new streets to continue on, but no one ever built them. And you've seen them. If you live in that area, you drove around, you see the outlets sitting there, and it goes to a vacant lot or just a wooded area. We intend to take those and build it out. Is it part of our community here we're trying to build? No. But it benefits you and it does benefit everybody. So we would build that out and get it built and do it up front as part of the project. That would include a connector to Fred Couples in the back there, a little green connector, because that's already stubbed out. And the extension from Fred Couples all the way over to Cibolo, City Road to Cibolo, and then through Cibolo, the right-of-way in yellow is already existing. When they platted those developments, they made to dedicate the right-of-way. I'm getting the message to get louder, that's why I'm talking louder about it. And then it takes it out the existing right-of-way with expansion to Green Valley. There is only one property owner we have to deal with to get from point A to point B. One property owner. It's a gentleman who lives in this area, who owns a company named Tidal Petroleum. I don't know if any of you know them, but we're going to be talking to them because we need to be able to interface with them on doing this. But it's advantageous for them and they'll be agreeable to it. If not, it will still be done, yes, but we don't want to go there because we don't want to voluntarily impose anything on anyone. But he is a businessman, and we're going to visit with him. I haven't had a chance. I put a couple of calls into him, but he has not reached back out yet. I'm sure he will. you updated on where that's going. But the money for this would come from the taxes collected on the new development. Okay, that's where it comes from. Because no one else is gonna pay for it. Okay, no one else is gonna pay for it. The developer can't do it out of his pocket and make the development even happen. It doesn't make sense. You can't build this off of an 81-acre development. It's a very large, expensive improvement that benefits everybody. It's a public improvement. It's not, that would not be designed to be a private improvement. So it would be a public improvement, but it would be paid for with, in part, county and city taxes collected from the new property that's developed and no one else. That's one solution. What's the other solution? This part is amazing to me too. Schwab Road. Schwab Road is intended to go all the way back to Green Valley. What you see here is Schwab Road here. There's an existing road, it's very small. It comes off of Schwab Road and comes back, and you can see how when Homestead's developing and building and expanding, they're required to build what I call a meaningless piece of Schwab Road. It doesn't go anywhere, but it's on the master plan. So the city makes them build it, it just sits there, just like those exits from your development sat there and still are sitting there. It doesn't solve anything, but technically, they built their piece of Schwab Road. What we're suggesting is we come up front and advance fund this extension of Schwab Road in blue that comes all the way and connects to what they've already built there. Why? It interconnects. This actually interconnects all the way back to your development. It will allow you to go from your existing homes all the way to Schwab Road and make Schwab Road a true four-way intersection. It needs to be signalized. There's another reason for the signalization. It needs to be done and paid for as quickly as possible. The reason for that is right now, you have very little traffic in the morning coming south on this access road. Because there's not much back up here developed yet. There's some industrial here, but not much back up here. And so, you sit there at the stop sign, you have to go through one by one by one. If they put signalization there, they can prioritize the timing so that all this traffic stacking up on 35 would be allowed to go around. It would be, in essence, a virtual turnaround. This intersection would turn into a turnaround by signalization where the traffic from two lanes would turn around. The outside lane closest to you guys could either go straight or turn left. The inside lane would have to turn left. And both lanes could turn left and come around and get on the 35 northbound access road and get on 35. It would eliminate the bottleneck here completely. It would prioritize that movement. There is no traffic coming this way. But it would still get some time on the light. Just make sure it stays clear. And there's no real traffic coming this way. To the extent there is, you'll get some time in light. Yet this intersection goes to a railroad track over here, basically. It's not got a lot of activity coming to 35. Amazon's down there. There is some freight traffic, but that's fairly systematic. It can be controlled by Amazon. They can actually schedule departure around that light sequence. That's sophisticated. So that extension would help immensely. But how does this work? These pieces of the existing road system and this signalization change connect you directly into this network of streets. Oops, sorry. So now the folks from this area have immediate access over to Schwab without having to wait on 35 or even getting on 35 and go directly through Schwab to 35 northbound. You have another road, a pure Greenwood, that does the same thing. You have two choices, go green or go blue. That's a meaningful change. It gives you a way to evacuate traffic from your subdivision and get back out to the north, and it eliminates the bottleneck. The biggest thing is, even if you didn't do all this, just that signalization tremendously solves the problem. And then we would also fund with TxDOT, we have a meeting being set up with them now. We would fund a true turnaround. Not a signalized turnaround, but a true turnaround so it's a constant movement without interference from other traffic to keep people moving around that corner and not stacking up on 35. Those are real solutions. That will help you. If this project doesn't happen, I don't know how you finance that, but it's something you should still demand from your government to be done because you deserve it. And you've been paying taxes a long time. That's it. Those are some of the changes we want to make. And that kind of finishes my portion of the presentation tonight. But you're not, it's not about listening to me talk. It's also about listening to you. what you think. You've been involved in this a long time, a lot longer than I've been involved in it. It's been very clear that your opinion of this project is a big no, the way it's been presented in the past. I don't know if the presentation I made tonight makes any difference in that or not, but I can tell you this, me and my client are really trying to work with you. It may not be successful, but I'm gonna give it my level best to make it work, to listen to you, and I've been listening to some folks and making changes, real changes based on those conversations in good faith. Tonight I want to listen to all of you. I've got an assistant back here and she's going to record what's said because I can't keep track of it all and I don't want to forget it. It's not to spy on you, it's to help me remember what the deals are that I need to pay attention to. So I'm telling you that out loud so you know it. And you know when you speak, we're gonna record it, not for any bad purpose, but just so I can remember what to tell my clients and she'll make notes of what's important, or AI will, hopefully. If AI doesn't, she will. So thank you for your patience and hearing me just drone on and on. But what I'm trying to do to me is important, and it's also important to you, I hope. And I'd like to hear from you about what is important to you, because it matters to me and to my client. Yes, sir, I think there's a mic for questions. I don't know how y'all want to facilitate this, but.
And I'll bring it over to you. I just want to clarify a couple things real quick. And we've talked about this, we do disagree on this one point.
Yes.
It's duplexes. He calls them single family, I call them multifamily. But it is a duplex product.
That's some of it, not all of it.
Right.
Probably about 70 of the units would be duplex, 70, 75. Duplex out of the, the 200 plus in that area would be duplex, but not all of it. There's a need for it. A lot of people are single that need a home. And they can't afford to bite off a bigger house. Duplex works for them. Or they're retired and want a simple, latch and leave kind of house. But yes, the reason I say they're single families is because under the law they are, and I'm a lawyer. Anything that's 2 units or lower is considered single family. Anything above that is multifamily. Under regulations, federal, state regulations, and local regulations. That's why I say single family. But absolutely, some of them would be duplexes, yes.
And then the other piece, the conventional multifamily, that it's apartments, so that we understand what that is, correct?
Right, yeah, this section here, let me go back to it. This section, the blue 15 acres would be conventional multifamily. What's that look like? It's a 2 to 3 story, what they call garden style multifamily. Just like you see other multifamily, nice, very nice one, but a multifamily, that's what it would be. And again, in Texas, the law changed last session where generally a lot of cities, if it's zoned commercial, any kind of commercial, you can do 35 units to the acre without getting the city's permission. That's how bad the housing crisis is in Texas. They passed that law. So just so you know, that's, yeah.
How many people would this whole entire project bring our community?
I can't give you that exact number because it's going to go down because of these talks, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 doors.
Say it's 3.5 people considered a house.
It could be 3 point, not the senior living, but yeah, the 3.5 on average is the national average of individuals to the house. I can get you that number, and we're going to pass out sheets so that there anyone having, get everybody's email addresses so we can email out answers to any questions. We're asked not to do that. However, if you would like your permission to get updates or information from us, please write your email and name here, and we will send you this presentation, and then every time we copy anybody or anything, you will get a copy of that email. Full transparency.
I have a loud voice, I don't probably needs. The trust that you're talking about, oh, I'm sorry, am I jumping?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
jumping
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, I don't know if you've driven the overpass at Schwab Road, there is no 2 turn lanes can go.
Correct, that would be the.
Without completely redoing bridges and everything.
That's right.
And I'm not saying that can't be done, but you're talking about major turnarounds.
That's correct.
In 4 lanes.
That's about a $24 million project. I know exactly what it is. That's why I'm saying a virtual signalization at first to keep that traffic moving. And then after that, it takes time before it would text up, but there would be a permanent improvement built as part of the reconstruction, which they're planning to do anyway with 35. which would make that a full turnaround. But we'd be able to expedite it because we move it up on the UPI of TxDOT by providing local funding. That's what it takes, and they'll move it up. That's how it works. That's what the state elected officials putting pressure on. Next question?
Yeah, mine is a little bit out of ignorance, I'm just now learning about terms, and I have a question. So the new homes, typically, those taxes would pay for services like fire trucks, police, and that kind of thing.
Yes.
The new homes, so who pays for that if that money goes into the pocket of?
There's two ways of doing that. One, again, is a negotiated percentage, so it could be 75% of the new taxes come to this and 25% go to the city. You'd be surprised, when you look at the city's budget, ask yourself how much is spent on fire and police protection, how much is spent on other things. That's how you determine what to ask for, okay? In addition, we can make supplemental payments. To the extent there's a fee, a management fee charged by this, you can do a pilot agreement, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So the people who live in this development could actually pay more than you in tax rate or fee, because they're supplementing those services. They actually put that money in to offset the tax loss, or the tax loss can be less because the fees offset these improvements. They would pay potentially a supplemental fee. You would not pay anything. It would stay with your normal taxes. That's a good question.
So my question is, if we run Country Club all the way back to Green Valley,
Yes, sir.
then what's gonna keep the people from turning off of 1103 and coming right down through Country Club, adding even more traffic?
So the question that becomes is where are they coming from and where are they going? Why would they turn into, through your development to Country Club to go to Green Valley?
Traffic.
Oh, yeah. Access to 35?
Access to 35, they're doing it right now.
Yeah, the way you would handle that, I think, is we have to think through this. That's why I want to do it with you, because you live here, I don't. One thing we could think of in doing that would be to say, you make it an out only, so you can only exit in the mornings, right? And that would help resolve that issue, because people in your development want to get out, they don't want to come in. You make it exit only, a one-way out only during certain hours, and you enforce it with police enforcement, people won't turn it, it's not lawful. You can only go out in the mornings. In the evenings, it could be in and out during the day, but in the evenings, you can make it to where you can go in. And that resolves that. And that happens in many places throughout cities where they have controlled access on hours.
So I, as a hospital worker, coming home at 7 o'clock in the morning, won't be able to come into Country Club?
If that were the case, you would not be able to come in to Country Club. Not Country Club, you can go to Country Club, but you wouldn't be able to, for example, one of these streets that connects at the intersection points, where you're worried about bleed over, that's where you put the sign now at Country Club. Country Club is a two-way street. It's where it connects with 1103, for example. One of the things we looked at was doing another extension. I don't know that it's practical, but you bring up a good point. But doing another extension, basically, essentially showing, you did the other slide that showed it. Yeah, this one. Again, this is flipped upside down, so be aware, right now you're looking at 35 on top, 1103 over here, over there, far left. We said no to this connector. So what if you put a connector in closer to 35 and came through the existing city parcel? The church would have to agree to it, but it would come through the very edge of the church parcel and go over and through to 1103 back behind where it says, basically the roadway easement sign there. That's where we kind of come in and hit. Just far enough down to where it meets the requirement for separation between intersections on a state highway, a state facility, which would be about 1,000 feet, 750 to 1,000 feet. That would let you get out, but the problem with that is it just takes you to the intersection where all this traffic's built up. It doesn't really solve anything. And you can't really get back in because you can't, during the heavy morning traffic, you're coming at 7 a.m., you wouldn't be able to turn left through that traffic to get in. It doesn't make sense. It'd be a waste of money, I think. There's a question here?
No, I got it.
I'm sorry.
Right here.
Oh, there you are.
I have both a statement and several questions. I can't speak for everyone here, but I do believe that all of us in this room want what newly elected Mayor Rodriguez said on Monday night in and that's an entire community that works with each other. We want lawyers and developers to stop using underhanded methods to pit neighbor against neighbor and HOA against HOA, which is exactly what your developer did last time.
I can't speak to that, but I can hear.
We want you, the lawyer and the developer, to recognize that you are taking away from us the one thing that we all paid extra money for to begin with, and that is our green space. And then you are expecting us to pay to use it from now on. We want neighbors that we can trust to go unplug the iron that we left on, streets safe enough for our kids to learn to ride their bikes on, and quiet evenings to enjoy the yard that we have worked so hard on all day long. We don't want 2,000 extra cars added to our already overcrowded streets. Piss poor drainage plans that end up flooding our homes and our roads. Developers that have no clue about our already existing sense of community, and to be forced to pay to use those green spaces. And most importantly, we want a city that actually listens to our concerns and gives us the green space and the roads that we should have and have been ignored for more than 20 years. So my questions revolve around this. You don't solve the density problem. That plan right there, and even dropping it down a couple of 50, 60 units, does not solve the density problem. Because just like Jan just asked, if you extend Country Club, now all of Turning Stone on our side of 1103 uses Country Club to get to 35 to avoid 1103. What are you going to do about flood control? You say absolutely nothing about that in your presentation. We have all lived here, many of us for going on 30 plus years, especially on the Northcliffe Estate side. That is a natural creek bed. Follow the topography. Everything from Turning Stone down to 35 travels to 35 to the railroad tracks on the other side of 35 and eventually to Cibolo Creek. That is a massive, massive issue, and all you're doing is throwing concrete on it that's going to end up in our yards. What are you going to do about traffic? Because you have not presented a plan that actually mitigates the traffic for the area around the golf course. You're mitigating traffic for everybody else outside of our area and only adding traffic to our area. What about our loss of green space? And most importantly, honesty and integrity. Because the TERS program, you're saying that you're going to do it. Actually, that takes city.
Correct.
You're saying bringing in neighbors. We are neighbors. That's why we're all sitting in this room together. You're not listening, because if you were listening, we wouldn't be having to have this meeting again.
Can I respond to that? I'm gonna assume you're not insulting my character, because you don't know me, and I don't know you.
No, I don't know you, but it's the same developer.
It's not. It's not. It's not the same developer. It's not Hobby. It's Hobby, but part of it still, they own a small piece of it that they bought, and it's theirs, they own it, they bought it. They already closed on it. Look at the tax rolls, they own it. My client, Hobby's involved because of that. My client's bringing a new vision for a project that's different. You're dealing with a client, and my client, who really does care. Very unique group of people.
I'm looking at your project.
You're
And
looking-
I'm being honest, I'm looking at your project, and where I live off of Wimbledon, I am 2 houses off the golf course, and there's 1 house behind me. And those 3 houses in 1 street, your product is 5 houses in 2 streets, and the space for 3 houses in 1 street.
Okay, again, this is why we're talking. You may have talked to 50 people before, but you haven't talked to me. Okay? You don't want to give me a chance, it's your prerogative. That's fine. Honestly, if none of you want to give me a chance, it's your prerogative. Don't. But I'll tell you something. If you want this to be your green space, because it's not owned by you. That's the reality. Not owned by my client right now either. He hasn't closed on it. Hobby owns their piece. You know, but my client doesn't own his piece yet. He's considering whether or not to invest in it. They are considering whether to invest in it. If they do, I can guarantee what they do is going to be the absolute best thing you could get there from a developer. But if you don't want it, that's okay. If you don't want it, if you really want this to be green space, my suggestion to you, because you now coalesce very well together, in part maybe because of this negative issue that you're facing, but in part because you care about each other. And you live together. Live together, go to the city, form a public improvement, because they're never going to buy it for you. I can guarantee you that right now. Form a public improvement district, do an assessment, put some money in it, and buy the land. And then it is your property, you can do what you want with it. That's what I would suggest you do.
May I ask you a question that
Yeah.
tags on to Carol's? And the bitterness that most people feel comes from Hobby's little piece of property.
Okay.
And the 3 different proposals that we've already bombarded city council with, and we were able to not get their zoning approved, was because of the density in that small area.
Yes.
And the fact that, especially with Scenic Hills and being, you know, more of the 55+ community,
Right.
had no security, no fence, and it was all rental. Those problems were well voiced to Hobby Homes every single time. And every time we heard, we want to hear your problems, we want to work with you, they never did. Their attorney even went door to door bribing people, which we caught on camera. And yet in this plan, their little section is exactly like it was 2 years ago. High density, rental, no fence.
And what I'm telling you tonight is, it can change.
Okay?
We can talk and change. I need to get a group of people. I can't just.
I
will
want
not-
you to understand that little piece alone already puts a lot of us in a negative mindset with Hobby still getting what they want out of your giant pretty project.
And they listen, what I'm telling you is, what we want to do is for everybody to get something they want. Not for just the developer, not for Hobby to get what they want, for everybody to get something fair that works. That's what we want. That's what my client wants.
How are you mitigating water?
So the reason I didn't bring water into it is because we have to design that. If we can't, it should be approved. I'm not gonna lie to you and say, we've got this bill, we're gonna do this, this, this. It has to be designed. My client is in the process of looking at buying the property and investing a lot of money into solving those issues. It will be solved. It has to be solved.
I guess that's part of our concern is the fact that the zoning change takes place prior to the water being mitigated.
Yes, so.
That's how it works, and so the city will approve the zoning change, but then we, as the current residents, we get no assurances whatsoever that water will actually